Many thanks to the co-chairpersons. Lined up as the 10th segment of the academic sessions, we have the poster presentation. This session will be co-chaired by Dr. Gayani Punchiheva, Senior Lecturer in Psychiatry, Faculty of Medicine, University of Ruhuna, and Dr. Aruna De Silva, Senior Lecturer in Pediatrics, Faculty of Medicine, University of Ruhuna. I cordially invite the co-chairpersons to chair the session.
Good afternoon to you all. Welcome to the poster session of the 80th Annual Academic Sessions of Galle Medical Association. There are 4 posters lined up today for this session. Each poster will take 5 minutes and 2.5 minutes for the presentation and 2.5 minutes for the question and answer session. Audience is kindly requested to direct your questions to the question and answer box.
The first poster presentation is on prevalence of SARS-CoV-2 infection among Ruhuna medical undergraduates during the first 2 waves of COVID-19 pandemic in Sri Lanka by Veerasinghe NP, Gunasena S, Vijayaratna WMDGP, Vikramasinghe SS, Tabru HHPMJ, Tilakaratna LG, Nagahawatha A, DS, Herath HMM, Bodhinayaka CK, Pathirana MD, Mandunetti R, Gunasekara NCA, Padmini JL, Dharmasiri GNJ, Mahaliyana D, Nicholson B, Wood C, Ubesekara HA, Devasiri IV, Amarasena TSD. It will be presented by Veerasinghe NP. Over to you, Nayani. You can start.
Our topic is prevalence of SARS-CoV-2 infection among Ruhuna medical undergraduates during the first 2 waves of COVID-19 pandemic in Sri Lanka. Medical students are a vulnerable cluster for COVID-19 infection caused by SARS-CoV-2 and their potential vectors due to high rate of asymptomatic infection in healthy young adults. Our objective was to estimate the prevalence of SARS-CoV-2 infection among medical undergraduates during the first 2 waves of COVID-19 pandemic. A repeated cross-sectional study conducted involving 175 and 104 students respectively during the first and the second waves of pandemic in Sri Lanka. A self-administered questionnaire was used to collect data. An RT-PCR and SARS-CoV-2 antibody tests were performed on all the participants. The results: PCR results was positive only during the second wave, and that was in 5 students. However, SARS-CoV-2 antibodies were positive in 1 student in the first wave and 7 students in the second wave, including all 5 students with PCR positive. And out of these 8 students who had positive antibodies, only 1 was symptomatic. Therefore, asymptomatic infection rate was 87.5% in our study group. This graph clearly shows the possible risk exposure to COVID-19 infection during the 2 waves, and it clearly shows that the risk exposure is higher during the second wave, as shown in the dark green color bars. In conclusion, during the first and second waves, the infection rate is very low. More medical students became positive during the second wave than in the first wave. However, most had asymptomatic infection. There is high risk of exposure for COVID-19 during the second wave of the pandemic in Sri Lanka. Surveillance at regular intervals, targeting individuals from diverse geographic regions can be helpful in tracking the spread of SARS-CoV-2 in Sri Lanka. I would like to acknowledge National Research Council for financial assistance and Duke Global Health Institute in USA for various assistance extended during the study, and Gaul Medical Association for giving us this opportunity to present the study findings. Thank you.
So, can I ask a question? Did any of these students who was positive, did they contact it from the hospital or they have contacted it from other sources? Those who became positive, did they contact COVID from the hospital or from other sources, from outside?
As there are no questions, we'll move on to the next presentation. It's on the knowledge, practices, and associated factors related to COVID-19 infection among doctors and nurses working in emergency treatment units in selected state hospitals in Kalutara district, Sri Lanka. Authored by Fernando TNMS, Ranasinghe N, and Athuporala KM. The poster will be presented by Fernando TNMS. Over to you, Fernando TNMS.
Our study topic is the knowledge, practices, and associated factors related to COVID-19 infection among doctors and nurses working in emergency treatment units in selected state hospital in Kalutara district, Sri Lanka. Introduction. COVID-19 is one of the most contagious diseases in the human history. Total number of COVID-19 cases are increasing globally and locally. Hence, healthcare workers are at a high risk of getting infected. Objectives: to describe the knowledge, practices, and its associated factors related to COVID-19 infection among doctors and nurses working ETUs in selected state hospital in Kalutara district, Sri Lanka. We have done our study by a descriptive cross-sectional study which was conducted among doctors and nurses at 4 main ETUs in Kalutara district. Results: out of 220 individuals, majority was female. The total knowledge on COVID-19 infection among participants, which was assessed by a 70 marks scale, and it was ranged from 18 to 63. Social media was the most commonly used source of knowledge. There was a statistically significant relationship between the knowledge and the designation, the current working station, work experience, and training on infectious control and prevention. Proper dunning and duffing practices were poor among participants, while good practices were evident in hand hygiene practices, appropriate discarding of used PPEs, and wearing a new face mask daily. Conclusions. The knowledge on COVID-19 among doctors, nurses varies according to their designation, working experience, working station, and training on infectious prevention and control. The practices are satisfactory except for dunning, duffing, and PPE usage for aerosol generative procedures. Recommendation. There is an urgent need for nationwide practical training on appropriate use of PPE to curtail the spread of COVID-19 infection among healthcare workers.
Thank you very much.
There's no other questions. We'll move on to the third poster. It's on effects of COVID-19 pandemic situation on congenital hypothyroidism screening performances in Faculty of Medicine Galle by Liyanage D. Hettiarachchi M. The poster will be presented by Liyanage D.
My presentation today is about the effects of COVID-19 pandemic situation on congenital hypothyroidism screening performances offered by the Faculty of Medicine Galle. Laboratory at Nuclear Medicine Unit screens about 160,000 samples for congenital hypothyroidism annually. It was running smoothly but had to face many challenges last year due to the situation of the country since March 2020, which was created by lockdown, posted delays, and other financial issues during the pandemic situation. Therefore, we conducted a study to assess the effects of COVID-19 pandemic on our screening function. In this retrospective analytical study, we assessed the laboratory key performances indices in two categories. Pre-COVID period was the time period from the beginning of year 2020 up to 15th of March prior to lockdown period. The remainder of the year was considered as post-COVID. Out of all the samples received during year 2020, about 208 got screened positive, and the results were informed to the parents through the maternal child health medical officers of the relevant area. Out of them, 111 got screened positive after serum confirmation. 17 samples out of them were received during the pre-COVID period, and the remaining 94 samples were received after. The key performance indicators are presented here. The median number of days taken to receive those screening positive samples and the median of days taken to inform results are tabulated here. During the post-COVID period, there was nearly a week delay observed to receive the sample, and it took 2 months to notify the patients. The challenge to any screening program is to deliver its outcome at the earliest to avoid any permanent damage to the babies. For congenital hypothyroidism, our target was to do this within first 3 weeks of life. However, we observed some modifiable factors contributing to the inadvertent delay, such as delayed delivery of samples, lack of reagents, and delay in conveying results. Thank you.
As there are no questions, we'll move on to the next poster. It is on prevalence of anastomotic leakage among patients who underwent intracorporeal and extracorporeal anastomosis in laparoscopic right hemicolectomy in Diana Princess of Wales Hospital in United Kingdom and National Hospital of Sri Lanka. Authors are De Silva, KPVR, Seneviratna RW, Manavadu NW. Poster will be presented by De Silva, KPVR. Over to you.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Viduruchira De Silva, Consultant General and a lower gastrointestinal surgeon from Teaching Hospital Karapiti. This is a study to assess the prevalence of anastomotic leak among patients who underwent intracorporeal and extracorporeal anastomosis in laparoscopic right hemicolectomy in Diana Princess Sovereign Hospital, United Kingdom, and National Hospitals of Sri Lanka. Anastomotic leak after ileocolic anastomosis affects both post-surgical improvement and motility of a patient. Therefore, protection of ileocolic anastomosis is of paramount importance in laparoscopic right hemicolectomy. My objective to assess the prevalence of anastomotic leak among postoperative patients who underwent intracorporeal and extracorporeal anastomosis in laparoscopic right hemicolectomy. This is a descriptive cross-sectional study done with an analytical component among 89 patients with colorectal cancers who underwent laparoscopic right hemicolectomy. The study objects were selected from colorectal cancer registry and theatre of the hospitals using simple random sampling method. A number of 45 patients had intracorporeal and 44 patients had extracorporeal anastomosis respectively. They were observed for any anastomotic leak within 1 week duration. The data was collected from the bedhead tickets and associated factors for the integrity of the anastomosis were determined by multivariate analysis. As you all can see, 45 patients who had intracorporeal anastomosis, only one person had anastomotic leak. However, there were 44 patients who had extracorporeal anastomosis. However, they have only 5 patients with anastomotic leak. Altogether, the prevalence of anastomotic leak is around 7%. Therefore, intracorporeal ileocolic anastomosis has minimized the anastomotic leak when compared to the extracorporeal anastomosis in laparoscopic right hemicolectomy. Thank you very much.
Since we do not have any questions, thank you, Dr. De Silva, for that presentation. And we have come to the end of this poster session. Now, with my co-chair, I would like to thank all the authors and the audience. And we would like to conclude the session now. Thank you.